Secretary Lutnick, thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for coming over to the Commerce Department.
Absolutely. So let's start with something fun. What's the wildest thing you've seen President Trump do since he took office the second time?
Well, going to the UFC fights is just amazing. So we walk into the arena and the place goes crazy. And they all go crazy. And the fighters, the coolest thing is when the fighters, after they win the fight, they jump over the fence, right? And then like they squat down in a way that you and I can't squat. You know, they squat down and they're like chatting with the president. It's so cool. And the other, when he played golf with Bryson DeChambeau, that was the other one. When, you know, because people think, oh, he's not, you know, he says he's a good golfer, but how good is he? I have a picture that I took of him hitting a golf ball. And I just took a photo with like my phone, and he's like out like this. And it's like his swing is so much nicer than mine. It's really scary. And so I show the picture to people. I go, look, this is his swing. And they're like, wow. I'm like, yeah, the guy's a really good athlete.
Good
shockingly
golfer.
good.
So you've made some great trade deals. Really, really impressive stuff. Japan, the EU, the UK, markets that have been closed to very important American exports. Can we break any news? Is there anything new on the horizon?
Well, there are a bunch of countries left. Obviously, we have the Switzerland issue, where, you know, the president of Switzerland was sort of staring at the UK deal. And the way that President Trump does deals, the first deal is always the best deal. And then the next deal is higher, the next deal is higher, the next deal is higher. And of course, Europe is special because it's beautiful. I mean, 450 million people and a $20 trillion economy. So they're special, right? Their economy is a thing of beauty for us to sell into, right? I mean, for the opportunity that it brings America is really extraordinary. So that's special. But so the Swiss leader kept saying, we're a small country, we want the UK deal. And that's just, you know, that you couldn't even get that on May 9th after we did the deal on May 8th, because that was the first deal, you'd have to pay a little more. So we have a bunch of countries to fix, like Switzerland, Brazil, right? It's got an issue. India. These are countries that need to really react correctly to America, open their markets, stop taking actions that harm America. And that's why we're off sides with them. You know, like a little country like Switzerland has a $40 billion trade deficit, you'd say. Because they'd say, well, they're a small, rich country. You know why they're a small, rich country? Because they sell us $40 billion extra of stuff. So we need to sort those out. And those, I think, will be sorted out, but they take time, and these countries have to understand that if you want to sell to the US consumer, right, you've got to play ball with the President of the United States. So those are still coming. You still have Taiwan, that's a big one that's coming, I think, pretty soon. I expect to really be talking to them and sorting that out. So a bunch of countries left, but the big ones, maybe the big ones, you know, India, as I said, Brazil, Switzerland is little, but we'll sort it out over time. Taiwan, those are in the works.
What are we looking to get out of the Taiwan trade deal specifically? What are we looking to hear that you'll know it's time to make that deal?
Well, the thing about Taiwan is they make like 95% of chips that we put in our phones, we put in our cars. They make 95% of our chips are made 9,000 miles away. That doesn't sound good. And by the way, it's 80 miles from mainland China. So and the Chinese have said, we're going to take Taiwan. Like, they're not even shy about it. So this is an issue. And the objective, my objective, and this administration's objective, is to get chip manufacturing significantly onshored. We need to make our own chips. The model is, if you can't make your own chips, how can you defend yourself? Right? You're going to rely on someone far away. How are you going to get the chips here to make your drones, to make your equipment? So we are hard at work focused on, when I walked into this department, the United States of America had 2% market. We were producing 2% of the chips we need. And my objective when I leave is 40%. Now that's Herculean. Everybody tells me it's impossible. It would require investment in America of north of $500 billion. And we'd have to get everybody out. And you have to get the whole supply chain, because imagine if you do A and B and C and you forget D. You don't really have an alphabet, right? You need the whole 26 letters. So we're going to bring the whole supply chain in. And that's my objective. So I think having Taiwan participate and agree to participate, see, that is the magic of the Trump administration of Donald Trump, because he can bring people to say, all right, if that's your goal, I'll help you achieve your goal, which is not natural for Taiwan, right? What's natural for Taiwan is we produce 95%, we feel great about it. And Donald Trump would say, it's not healthy for you or healthy for us, because we protect you. And for us to protect you, come on, you need to help us achieve reasonable self-sufficiency.
I imagine, though, on this question of protection, that they would be worried that if they lose that 95%, we would be less likely to protect them in the event of China, for example, taking military action. Is there some kind of security guarantee that they can expect in this trade deal?
So in the trade world, it's called the silicon shield. Like, we need their silicon, the chips, so badly that we'll shield them, we'll protect them. And so my argument to them was, well, if you have 95%, how am I going to get it to protect you? You're going to put it on a plane? You're going to put it on a boat? We need enough production. So the idea that I pitched them was, let's get to 50-50. We're producing half, and you're producing half. We're still fundamentally reliant upon you, because we can't live without the other half. But if we have half, we have the capacity to do what we need to do if we need to do it. So that's our thinking, and that has been the conversation we've had with Taiwan, that you have to understand it's vital for you to have us produce 50%. And that conversation, now you can imagine when someone has 95%, convincing them that they should only have 50%. That's a lot of talking. But you can tell already just from these couple of minutes, I'm not really shy about talking. And that's what we've been working on. And I think that is my goal. And I've lived a very successful business life, and I don't remember giving up everything I have in my life and selling everything I own to have this job, to be incremental, to be small. Our goal is to get to 40% market share and maybe 50% market share of producing the chips and the wafers, the semiconductors we need for American consumption. That's our objective, and I think it will shock everybody how successful we are.
So you've already alluded to the national security interest in a lot of the reshoring of manufacturing that the president's tariff regime is designed to do. But some reports suggest that we've lost up to 80,000 manufacturing jobs since the president took office. Walk me through that tension there, that contradiction.
Well, it can't be true. I mean, sure, the first day, you walk in from the Biden administration, and what happens on the next Friday, they blame Donald Trump, which is silly, right? The tariff world is going to bring in the greatest building of advanced manufacturing. It's not the country's ever seen. It's not even possible, the scale. I mean, just what we talked about bringing semiconductors, that's $500 billion. $500 billion is going to be invested across AI by each company. You have companies saying, you had OpenAI say, I'm going to invest $1 trillion. I mean, these numbers are going to create so many manufacturing jobs. The stress in America is going to be, we have to train the 6.9 million able-bodied Americans who are sitting on the sidelines, right? Who didn't want to go to a liberal arts college. They didn't want to work in the marketing department of some company. They want to work with their hands. They want to get out there, and those jobs are coming. These are advanced technical skills where you can be trained. You don't need a college education. You can be trained to be a robotics technician, to do HVAC, right? Like you'd say air conditioning. Yeah, but when you see these factories, this is the highest sort of technical detail. Like I met a pipe fitter in Arizona, and he says, I have the coolest job. And I said, explain it to me. He goes, these HVAC systems are so technical that to get the piping to work together is a giant Tetris game. I've got to fit this one to this one and this one. He goes, and no one's ever done it before. And this is the most sophisticated thing in the world. And everybody stands around with computer modeling and we try to figure it out. And then we go execute it. And you could see in his eyes and hear in his voice how proud he was of that job. And he gets starting salary, $75,000. And going up here, this guy who I was talking to had been doing it for 3 years. He was making 150 grand, and he said, this is so fun. This is the job I've always wanted. And he was sitting on the sidelines beforehand. When I was young, and I went to school, they had shop class, right? Where you went and you did things and you learned to work with your hands.
Defunded by President Obama, vocational training in high schools, by the way. Is this something we can see the Trump administration bring back?
I think it's important to bring back, because when I was young, there were kids who really liked that.
Yeah.
And one of my friends who really liked shop class runs the largest landscaping company on Long Island, right? Like that's what he did, because that's who he was. And when we stopped embracing those people for really who they are and tried to jam them into some other world, we lost them. And those are the just under 7 million able-bodied Americans who are sitting on the sidelines because they just don't feel that the jobs are available to them that they really like, right? Because we took auto manufacturing, went to Canada and Mexico because of NAFTA, which was crazy town. It was so ridiculous to take jobs out of Michigan and Ohio and send them to Mexico and Canada. That was just horrible for those families. Where are those people going to find jobs that are built for them? And the answer is the Trump administration is going to bring back advanced manufacturing. We're going to have the greatest training program in the history of America. We're going to seek to train 5 million Americans to give them the technical skills that all these people who want to build these factories and then operate these factories. You build a fab, which is the name of a semiconductor, factory, costs $20 billion. You need 5,000 people working on it to build it, and then 3,000 people work in it, right, as technicians. And we need to train for those jobs. You need to get the local community colleges, the state universities, right, vocational schools, and going back to high schools again. Train these people, these great Americans, for these jobs, because they are coming. So not only am I not worried about someone silly saying we've lost 80,000 jobs, I am feeling the stress of how are we going to train 5 million Americans. So I think the issue is not that way. The issue the Trump administration has is we've been so incredibly successful with companies announcing, like auto companies, we're going to build more plants, 40 billion, right? Just VW says it's going to do 23 billion, just one company, right? All these companies coming and building in America are going to produce construction jobs and then technical jobs. And I think it's going to be growth that no one's ever seen. We had 3.8% growth last quarter. And I've said you're going to grow over 3% this year. Obviously, I'm dead right. And next year, over 4%. And you have the largest economy in the world. Over 30 trillion, right? Our economy just crossed $30 trillion. 30 trillion, and it's going to become one of the fastest growing economies in the world as well. And that, you ever wonder, like, why do we grow like everybody else? You know what, under Donald Trump, that's going to end. We are going to just outpace the field.
So this focus on blue-collar workers, I think, is very systemic throughout the administration. It's why President Trump won the majority of Americans who make under $100,000 a year. Working class people do really see these policies as putting money in their pockets. My question would be, now that we've seen this political realignment to where the GOP has become the party of the working class, and the Democrats now represent, 9 of the 10 richest counties in America, the majority of Americans making over $500,000 a year, why is the GOP still cutting taxes for the rich when the rich are Democrats and their own voters are working class people?
See, that's just a misperception. What was the key to the One Big Beautiful Bill? No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax for our seniors on Social Security. All of those things paid for, right, by the tariff revenue that's coming in, right? This is Donald Trump's sets of goals. They are designed to help those Americans who are the hardworking Americans who are working for tips, who are working for overtime, and our seniors for Social Security. These are that model. The fact that he kept the same taxes that he passed last time, they call it a giant tax cut. But the fact is, it's just the same taxes as we had last time. Nothing changed. He didn't give a tax cut to any rich person. That is just not true. The objectives are no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, to go for the union laborers, the working class. He is the first Republican president who actually understands that hardworking Americans, this are good American jobs. This is the foundation of America. And they have a president finally in the White House who understands them. It's not lip service, it's action, right? He is full of action, and he has taken those action. And if you go to those workers, they know who's got their back, and it's Donald Trump.
So you recently made news on the H1-B visa front. This is a big priority for the MAGA base. First of all, can you clarify, is it a yearly $100,000 fee, or is it a one-time fee? And also, does it apply to visa holders, or is it only for new applicants?
So as of this moment, but remember, this procedure and process goes into effect in February of 2026. So my guess is going to be there are going to be a significant number of changes between now and 2026, right? But as of right now, there's going to be a one-time fee of $100,000 to get in, because the lottery, there was a lottery. These H1-B is a lottery. And I was yesterday I talked to the heads of the 2 of the top 5 tech companies in the world, and they said doing a lottery for skilled workers coming into America is bizarre. Right. I mean, why, when you're trying to take in skilled workers, would you do it by a lottery? That just doesn't make any sense. So everyone agrees that the process, which was set up in 1990 and sort of butchered along the way, needs to change. So it's 7 times, 8 times, 10 times oversubscribed. 74% of it is tech consulting. H1-B visas are for tech consultants? Like somehow that's like important that tech consultants are onshored versus offshored? I mean, they're all in other countries anyway. 4% were for educators, 4% for medical, for doctors. I mean, so I think it's just needs thought. But right now what he's done is he's put $100,000 on for the application so that at least it shouldn't be overrun with these people. But I think you're going to see a real thoughtful change going forward. And that's what I expect will happen. There's going to be a variety of changes. They're talking about changes, how to get the lottery, should it still be a lottery, but that'll all be resolved by February.
So back in Christmas time, before President Trump assumed office, there was a big blow up between Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy and the MAGA base over this issue of H1-B visas. And it seemed like this kind of breaking point potentially between the tech bros who had been brought into the coalition and then the working class base that really feels that these should be jobs that Americans are prioritized for. Fast forward to May, President Trump and Elon Musk had a bit of a falling out as he left the office, but we just saw them speaking in a very friendly manner at Charlie Kirk's memorial Has there been a thawing in that relationship?
Well, I think, so let's just finish on the H1-B.
Okay.
I think the H1-B lottery needs to be fixed, right? I think we should only give jobs, highly skilled jobs, to the most highly skilled people. There shouldn't be, doctors should be able to come in, educators who are highly skilled and have high degrees. Of course, those people should be able to come in, right? And if you want to hire engineers, you should hire highly paid ones. The idea of having tech consultants and trainees who are inexpensive should be eliminated. Mm-hmm. So that, I have a strong opinion that way. I think the president's right with me on those same topics. And so how we work through changing the H-1B visas at the end. But I am completely on the view that this idea that inexpensive tech consultants should be coming into this country and bringing their families, I find it just wrong. And so it sits wrong with me. Going back to your question, I think Donald Trump is a really kind person. You know, the media, you just don't see him. But I've been friends with President Trump for over 30 years. And because I'm in New York and I've known him, and Steve Witkoff and I, you know, we arm wrestle for who's the best friend of the president in the administration. But, you know, he's a very kind person. And so he's going to forgive Elon. Mm-hmm. Will he forget? No, he doesn't forget. Okay, so he's going to be kind and he's going to be warm as he is as a person. Mm-hmm. But do I think it's going to go back to being lovey-dovey? No, I think Elon Musk had that. He had really earned the president's friendship and admiration. And then in his departure, he expressed a part of himself that was very negative. And I don't think the president's going to forget that negativity. He's going to be kind and he's going to be warm as he is, and he will be friendly. Mm-hmm. And he will be nice because he is incredibly nice. But do I think he's going to forget? I don't.
To me, Liberation Day really set to rest this narrative from the left that Donald Trump is somehow out there to enrich his rich friends. Because of course, Wall Street was very, very angry about the tariffs. I'm sure every rich friend he has was on the phone begging him not to do this. But at the same time, others have accused him of enriching himself through the presidency. He has his meme coin at Mar-a-Lago. How do you respond to those accusations?
The president cares about America. Mm-hmm. He just cares about America. And anyone who suggests that he cares about his own economics has not spent any time with him, is just making it up. Every day you talk to him, every evening that I speak to him, he cares about America, right? Sometimes he'll speak like it should be for, you know, give it to me, but he doesn't mean me. Mm-hmm. He means me for America, and he means us for America. It's not for us, it's for America. And so I've watched him relentlessly, and never once has he given a hoot about himself, about his family, about his economics, right? The meme coin stuff was done by his family. Mm-hmm. If you ask him about it, he goes, I don't know. Like, he'd actually say, I don't know. Like, that's how he'd answer it. Like, mm-hmm. He has spent no minutes mm-hmm. on the topic. But I tell you what, when you talk about the finances of America, I mean, we have a 4.5 trillion, we had when we walked in, 4.5 trillion of revenues in America. We were spending 6.5 trillion a year. So we're losing 2 trillion and going to 2.5 trillion, right? We have a $36 trillion deficit. Sounds like we're going to hell. But the president understands that I think the balance sheet of the United States of America is worth $500 trillion. Mm-hmm. So if we're worth $500 trillion, that's not bad. Now I think the president, when he analyzes it, he thinks it's a quadrillion, okay? But if you're worth, whether it's 500 trillion or a quadrillion dollars, you just have to get your house in order. And he is seeking to get our house in order. Tariff revenues, $600 billion going to $1 trillion, right? doing things that are really, really smart, right? Not giving away access to our country, but saying, if you want to come to our country, green cards, as an example. If you looked at the last 10 years of green card holders, they are the bottom quartile of America. They're not helping to raise us up. They're, in fact, we're giving out the most valuable thing we can give: permanent access to the greatest country and economy on earth, and they are pulling us down. And Donald Trump says, no, 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 no. Let's change that. Let's be like every other country. If we're going to have immigration to permanent residents, let them raise us up. Let's pick not even the top quartile. Let's pick the top of the top of the top. Let's make sure they have the ability to build businesses, grow businesses, hire Americans, invest in America. So what really excites me about this job, right? We have almost $1 trillion. We're going to grow our tariff revenue. Could possibly grow to $1 trillion a year. It's probably running at $500 billion now, but as we grow and as those deals finish, we could grow possibly up to $1 trillion a year. Then we have the gold card and the platinum card, which I think those two programs together could bring in $1 trillion to the United States Treasury, right? So you have this is $1 trillion a year to my right, $1 trillion here, and then you have investment. Like you have Japan, who's committed $550 billion for us to invest in America. But you have, Europe has said it'll invest $600 billion. Their companies will invest $600 billion. They'll buy $750 billion of our energy. So you have all these just trillions after trillions of dollars. And then, what the president says to me is, he goes, Howard, how are you going to go back to your regular life after this? Like, you can't there's no deal that's like any good. You do $1 million deal, you're like, forget it. Who wants to do $1 million deal? So, and that's what he says.
That's hilarious.
That's what he thinks. He thinks he's here to do the biggest things in the world, to get our house in order, to fix the economy of the United States, which is the best. Have it grow the way it's supposed to grow, 4% and 5%. Better than everyone else in the world, because we are the smartest people. We invented the light bulb. We invented the transistor. We invent GPUs. We invent all the great drugs. We are the great economy. We are the great thinkers. We are the great innovators. And we are the great consumer of the world. And therefore, everybody's got to come play here. And our economy should grow faster than everybody else's in the world. And if you grow it faster, and you don't get ripped off by tariffs, and you bring in the best of the best into the country, what you'll get is an incredibly great America. You'll have the Make America Great Again. It actually will be great. And what does that mean? That means we'll have the largest economy in the world, the fastest growing economy in the world, full employment, and so much excitement that any kind of person can get the jobs they dream of and they want to get. And a balanced budget, which then allows us to take care of our own, to cut the taxes on the people who make less than $150,000 a year. And then we can go out and help the world. But when you help the world, when your own house isn't in order, it's not right. When you go and have your house in order, you can go help the world with power. And I think that's our main objective. That's why I joined Donald Trump, because those objectives exactly speak to my heart.
So we're seeing all these revisions up. The economists were just dreadfully wrong about all of their worst prognostications, but also GDP is growing, S&P 500 reaching new heights. But the American people are not necessarily feeling that. In a lot of polls, people don't feel that things are getting better for them. Inflation is proving rather sticky. How can the American people expect, or when can they expect the price of groceries to go down? And how does the president plan to get their confidence back on the economy for everyday regular Americans before the midterms?
So you start with drill, baby, drill, right? So for a huge percentage of America, the cost of gasoline, the cost of heating their house, right? These are core numbers. 30, 40% of their spending is energy. drive down those energy prices, right? We have oil down in the 60s. The more energy we produce, which is key, nuclear, like clean, beautiful coal, which he talks about. Stop closing coal plants, right? And produce the power to drive down the costs for America. We're on that, and that is going quite well, right? You're seeing gas finally drop lower and lower and lower, so that's going to matter, right? Open markets so that our farmers can be more successful and they can grow and have confidence that they can sell their goods around the world will drive down our costs here. So those two things, plus all these nonsensical markets, the way people treated us badly, will bring in products and we'll do better, and then we can lower taxes. So lower taxes. I think the 2026 economy is Donald Trump's economy. The 2025 is a mixture of Biden's economy and Donald Trump's economy, right? The first quarter was weird because everybody knew tariffs were coming. So there were huge amounts of imports, but that's over. Now you have a 3.8% growth in Donald Trump's first full quarter in office. Pretty darn amazing. So I am really proud of our president. I'm really proud of the way he's attacking this economy. And I think Americans through 2026 are going to feel how incredibly exciting our employment opportunities are, all these construction jobs coming fast and furiously, and the training program for America starts to get out there in its full glory. I think America's going to love what it feels like to have the President of the United States be Donald J. Trump.
Last question. I want to play you something that the president said when he was asked about the future of the GOP and the bench and who he sees as the potential future.
We have a great bench, as you know that. We have great talent. And JD and Marco and Scott Bessen's been great, and Howard. They're all, I mean, we have such superstars.
Mr. Secretary, are you running for president?
I am running for helping Donald Trump be the most successful he possibly can. I have 3.5 years to make a fundamental difference for America. I sold everything I owned to take this job to help America. And someone said, what are you doing next? I tell you what I'm doing. I'm doing 3.5 years of being the most effective I possibly can to raise all the things we talked about today. You know, no one's ever brought in $1 trillion with their right hand and $1 trillion a year with their other hand, right? And go execute these plans. I have so much to do that I am just going to serve my president as well as I possibly can, and I'll worry about the future another time.
Thank you so much, Secretary Lutnick.
Thanks.